the scandalous queen, the forbidden lovers of Marguerite de Valois. In the glittering courts of 16th century France, where perfume masked poison and silk veiled secrets, one woman captivated the kingdom more than any other. Marguerite de Valois, daughter of Catherine de Medici, sister to kings and queen of France by marriage. But history remembers her not only for her crown, but for the lovers who passed through her bedchambers like whispers in the night, born into the ruthless house of Valois. Marguerite was raised amidst murder plots, religious wars, and courtly betrayal. She learned early that love was not a luxury royalty could afford, unless it was hidden. Beautiful, eloquent, and dangerously intelligent, she was a gem that shone too brightly for the dark world around her. At the age of 19, she was forced into a political marriage with Henry of Navarre, a Protestant in a Catholic court. The wedding was meant to bring peace. Instead, it bathed Paris in blood. The infamous St. Bartholomew's Day massacre erupted days after. Marguerite was caught between her family's hatred and her husband's contempt. She turned, instead, to passion. It began with small glances, exchanged behind tapestries and fans. Then came the poems, the perfumed letters, and midnight rendezvous behind cathedral walls. Marguerite, trapped in a loveless marriage, began collecting lovers like a monarch collects jewels carefully and with great discretion. At least at first, the court whispered of Joseph Boniface de la Malle, a dashing nobleman with eyes like winter storms. He was bold, too bold. Their affair burned hot and fast. But France was no place for reckless hearts. When a plot against the king was uncovered, La Malle was implicated. Marguerite watched helplessly as her lover was tortured and executed. She kept his embalmed head in a jeweled box. Her enemies called her the Queen of Scandal. Her mother called her a disgrace. But Marguerite was not done. The court might try to bind her with protocol, but she would always find a way to live and love on her terms. Next came Chamberlain, then and countless unnamed courtiers who slipped in and out of her private apartments like shadows. Some were artists, some were soldiers, all were enthralled. Marguerite didn't just want bodies. She wanted devotion. She wanted to feel alive. Rumors grew. They said she bathed in wine, danced naked under moonlight, and wrote erotic poetry under a false name. The clergy called her immoral. The people called her the French Messalina, a nod to the Roman empress famed for her sexual appetite. Marguerite wore the title like a crown. Her marriage to Henry crumbled completely. He became King Henry IV of France, and quickly found a mistress of his own. Marguerite was exiled from court, her titles stripped. Most queens would fade into silence. Not Marguerite. She established her own court in the countryside, one ruled not by politics, but by pleasure. Her estate in Auvergne became a haven for poets, musicians, and young noblemen who sought favor and more. She wore jewels in bed, hosted masked balls until dawn, and was said to have had an entire underground passage built just to sneak lovers in unseen. But Marguerite wasn't merely lustful. She was shrewd. Her relationships gave her influence. Her lovers brought her secrets, alliances, leverage. While kings played chess with armies, she played with hearts, and often won. Once, it's said, she seduced the Avar Duchess just to humiliate a rival. Another time, she intervened to save a lover sentenced to death, only to betray him when he dared love another. Her heart was a battlefield, and no man emerged unscathed. But love, even in its darkest form, takes its toll. As Marguerite aged, the court's ridicule grew louder, her lovers younger, the gossip sharper. Too old to seduce, they said. She responded by seducing a bishop. She returned to Paris in her later years, reconciled with her former husband and even regaining her title. Yet her past clung to her like perfume. Wherever she went, people stared, not at a dowager queen, but at the ghost of scandal incarnate. In secret, she penned her memoirs, pages inked with both passion and poison. She named names, described nights in velvet beds and mornings of betrayal. The manuscript, when discovered, was deemed too shocking to publish in full. One story claimed she disguised herself as a man to sneak into a monastery for a forbidden tryst. Another, more sinister, hinted at the death of a maid who had learned too much. Truth or legend, no one dared ask, no one dared investigate. Marguerite died in 1615. Not quietly, but as a legend. Her funeral was attended by kings, poets, and former lovers alike. Some wept. Others feared her even in death. Her heart, they said, was divided among a dozen graves. Centuries later, historians still debate how much of her story is true. But the letters, the poems, the scandalous pamphlets, they endure. They paint a portrait of a queen who refused to be caged by custom. In a world where women were traded like treaties, Marguerite de Valois made herself unforgettable, not just through sex, but through power, intellect, and unapologetic desire. She was not a victim of history. She bent it to her will. And so her legend lives on, the Queen of Lovers, the scandalous Margot, the last daughter of Valois who chose freedom over fear. In the candlelit corridors of Versailles, they say her spirit still lingers, laughing, whispering, waiting.